You don't have a bad team. You have a standard of convenience. Some of you think culture is about being liked. It's not. Culture is the byproduct of excellence. Excellence specifically in recruiting and retention and everything in between for your business. I'm Spencer Combs, the Defiant Coach, and this is Spencer Uncensored, episode 108. And this is where we talk about the real reason your business isn't giving you the profit, the productivity, or the purpose you'd hope for. And it's probably not even what you think it is. Last week, we talked about the three questions every stuck entrepreneur is asking and why the answers most people find are missing the most important piece. If you haven't seen that episode yet, you can go back and watch it on YouTube. It'll give you context for everything we've been doing in this entire series. This week, though, we're starting to go deep into the five arenas of your business where cultural gravity does its most consistent damage. And we're starting with excellence specifically, not because it's the easiest one, because it's the most foundational one. And here's how I want you to think about this. Inside the Defiant Code, right? That's our 37-day program. At the time of this recording, we're actually in the middle of putting it all together. But it's a 37-day program where the five arenas of your life that we work on every single day, one of those is spiritual. And the spiritual area answers one question. Who or what am I doing this for at the deepest level? It's the foundation that everything else is built on. So excellence is the spiritual equivalent to your business. It's the heart and soul of the organization. It answers the question, what does this business actually stand for? What do we believe about how we show up, how we hire, how we lead, and who gets to stay, right? I hesitate to say how we fire, but really who gets to stay? If you get this right, then every other area, business arena, has something solid to stand on. Get this wrong, and cultural gravity fills the vacuum. And it will. It always does. It'll set your standard for you, and it will always set it lower than you deserve. So here's what we're going to cover today. By the time we're done here, and if you stick with me through the whole thing, you're going to understand why your team problems are almost never actually a team problem. You're going to see how all four power patterns show up differently in this particular arena of excellence and why each one gets stuck in a different way. And you're going to walk away with at least two specific things you can do this week to raise your standard, not theory, actual moves. So let's get down to business. Let's talk about this. Excellence, let me define it. So I'll define it this way. The way I use it in the framework, I need to define it because it's a little different from how most people would think about it. Excellence in the five arenas covers three primary areas of your business: your team, your culture, and your recruiting and retention systems. Those are going to be the components. But here's the thing. All three of those are downstream of one thing, and that is your standard. The standard that you set, or more accurately, the standard that you actually tolerate. Because here's the reality. You always have a standard. The question is whether you chose it intentionally or whether it showed up by default. And when it shows up by default, that is cultural gravity at work. Cultural gravity pulls your standard towards what's convenient, not what you intended when you started the business. You remember that, don't you? Not the vision you had, what's convenient right now, and what avoids the hard question, right? What's keeping the peace? What feels easier than the alternative? And every time you make a decision based on convenience instead of conviction, you've just lowered your standard. Maybe only a little bit, but it compounds. Cultural gravity, probably want to write this one down. Cultural gravity sets your standard if you don't. And it will always set it lower than you deserve or that your business deserves. Now, before we get into the patterns, let me give you a quick map of how excellence in this particular area connects to the 5 building blocks that we have in mastery, because this is an architecture underneath all of it. Okay. So purpose, or the purpose block when it comes to this area of this arena of the business, is about who this business is actually for and what it stands for at the core. It's your ideal client. These are your non-negotiables. The values that aren't negotiable, regardless of the revenue pressure, right? We need to get very clear on purpose. The second block is going to be priorities. So if you understand the mastery framework that we have it's the Qualified Champions framework in Momentum and Mastery, the book. Priorities is the next building block. This is about your standards, not what you say the standard is, what you actually tolerate. Those are two very different things, and most leaders confuse them consistently. Okay, not the standards, not what you say them, what you actually are tolerating. Look around your business. The third building block is power. That power is in reference to the mindset of accountability and the mechanics of resources. So accountability for resources is where your power lies. And in reference to this area, it's very heavy on the accountability discussion. Are you taking ownership of the culture you've created, or are you blaming the team for the environment you built? Second to that, of course, is going to be, is everyone within the team also carrying a mindset of accountability for the resources that they've been given? That's where their true power lies. The fourth building block is going to be performance. And performance is a mindset of belief, faith versus fear. It's a mindset of belief, and it's the mechanics of process or systems. So in this particular arena of excellence, it's your actual systems, right? So how you hire, how you onboard, what your daily expectations look like, and how you retain the right people. On top of that, once we have that cleaned up, then the next logical step, the fifth building block, the final one, is progress, because that's what we're all after. We want more consistent growth and progress. And that's a mindset of flexibility and the mechanics of a feedback loop, right? So it's feedback. Progress in excellence, or in this arena, is your feedback loop. Are you measuring culture, or just assuming it exists because you wrote down some core values on a wall somewhere? How many times has that walked into business that see that all the time, right? Is this a big enough coffee cup for y'all? That's the full architecture. Now let's look at how each of these 4 patterns operate inside of all of this, and what cultural gravity does to each one. And then I'll get to how you can actually address them. I'll give you 2 things in each one of the quadrants. So let's start off with the unqualified champion. If you're familiar with our work, then you know kind of what that means. But basically, you got high mindset and low mechanics. So if you're in this quadrant, you've got the mindset, you believe in the people, you believe in culture, you genuinely care about the environment you're building. That's not the problem. The problem is that your mechanics haven't caught up to your vision. And here's what this looks like in this particular arena. You talk about culture all the time. You hire people based on energy and enthusiasm. You know when something or someone has the right vibe, and that matters to you. Your team probably loves working with you, by the way. You've been in one of these environments? There's genuine warmth in the organization. But here's what cultural gravity is going to do. It's going to be whispering to you. If the energy's right, the results will follow. And that sounds true. It might even feel true, but it's not the whole truth. Because without a defined standard, without clear written negotiable expectations, enthusiasm doesn't produce consistency. You've got a room full of people who love the mission, but aren't sure exactly what winning actually looks like on a Tuesday afternoon. And that gap, that's where cultural gravity lives. It fills the undefined space with whatever's convenient. What it costs you is high turnover that you call culture fit issues, right? Inconsistent results because nobody's agreed on what the standard actually was. And eventually, you become the standard. because you're the only one who knows what good looks like, and that will not scale. So if you're struggling with scaling, this might be the issue. So here's two things. Actually, write this down. If you feel like that might be you, you're building a vibe. That's not a culture. Those are two separate things. If this is you, you're building a vibe, not a culture. Here's two things you can do right now to fix this. First, write down the 3 non-negotiable behaviors every person on your team must demonstrate. Not skills, not job duties, behaviors. Like how they communicate, how they handle problems, how they show up when things get hard. Post those, hire to them. And when someone consistently doesn't demonstrate them, that's your answer. That's number one. Number two, build a 30-day onboarding document. 1 page is fine. What does success look like at the end of week 1? Week 2? Week 4? Enthusiasm without clarity is expensive chaos. Y'all can tweet that one. Just make sure you tag Spencer Combs on that one. Enthusiasm without clarity is expensive chaos. Give people a map. All right. Now on to the qualified victim. And I want to say this with some empathy because I've been here. A lot of you listening have been here. Maybe that's you right now. You have systems. You've done the work. Job descriptions actually exist. Processes are documented. You probably even have an org chart somewhere. Depends on the size of your business. And I should have probably mentioned this. If you're a solopreneur and you're hearing this, then we're talking about you personally, just you. But here's where you're stuck in the excellence arena. You're tolerating underperformance, not because you don't see it. You see it clearly. I mean, the numbers show it, right? But because replacing people feels harder, messier, and more disruptive than just managing around them. So you do. You compensate. You cover. You adjust everyone else's role to work around the one person who's not pulling their own weight. And the culture, it's polite, it's functional, but it's stagnant. Nobody challenges anyone because nobody wants to rock the boat. And you, the leader, you're exhausted. Am I right? Because you're doing the job and parts of everyone else's job too. Cultural gravity the lie from cultural gravity to you is this. Loyalty means keeping people even when they're holding the team back. And you've bought it. Hook, line, and sinker, as they call it here in the South. Maybe because you care about people. Maybe because your conflict feels like failure. Maybe because you told yourself that things will improve if you just give it some more time. Here's what's costing you. The best people leave. Think about maybe why you left a previous environment. And typically they're not going to leave loudly. They just quietly start looking because they see mediocrity being tolerated and they know they're worth more than the environment. You lose top performers to protect your underperformers. And that's a trade-off you cannot afford if you're looking to actually do some business. Here's something for you to write down. You have the mechanics of culture, but none of the conviction. So here's what you can do. 2 fixes. First, do an honest team audit this week. So for each person on your team, ask yourself one question. If they came to me today and told me they were leaving, would I be relieved or devastated? If it's genuinely relieved, that person should probably already be gone. That feeling is your standard talking to you. The second thing you can do is schedule a 30-day performance conversation with your lowest performer. So the people that are not doing well and maintaining the standard. This is not a firing conversation. It's a standard conversation. Sit down and say, here's what I need from you. Here's what that looks like specifically. Here's the timeline I'm giving you. And here's what happens if you're not there in 30 days. Then you follow through. That's the part that matters. Then you follow through. Mind you, this is probably a coaching conversation, and this is a lot of what I do in companies when I come in to do one-on-ones. This is a discussion where we're consistently helping someone close the gap between where they are and where they want to be. And many times it's a mindset conversation if this is the case. Do they have a mindset of commitment? Do they have a mindset of focus in the sense that they're focused more towards what they're moving toward versus what they're moving away from? Right? Are they accountable? Do they own their results? And do they carry honor with the things they do well? Right? These are all pieces to that puzzle. But understand, once you set this up with that lowest performer, you got to follow through on those conversations. You're looking to coach them up. And if they're not going to come along, then I think you got your answer. Next group, the unqualified victim. And I want to be careful here because if you're in this quadrant, you're not a bad person. You're just probably in survival mode. And survival mode doesn't leave a lot of room for thinking about culture or standards or recruiting systems. And you might actually just be completely alone. Maybe you don't even have a team anymore, right? Here's what excellence looks like from this particular quadrant. Your team, if you have one, is whoever said yes, right? Hiring is reactive. Someone needed to be, we needed a position filled. You found a warm body and you moved on because there was 17 other failures to put out, right? Culture is an abstract concept that feels like something bigger, something the bigger businesses would worry about. You're just trying to make payroll. And I get it. But the lie that you're going to hear from cultural gravity is the most insidious one of them all and you can't afford to have standards right now. That's what it's telling you. You can't afford to have standards right now. Just get through this season. And then the season never ends. It's just on and on, because without a standard, every hire makes the problem worse. And every person you bring in pulls the organization closer to the mean, closer to the average, because that's the only standard that exists. Mind you, a tremendous, I don't have the statistic in front of me, it's something like 80% of businesses are out of business within 5 years. What it costs you is a business that stays small. Not because the market isn't there, not because you don't have talent, but because small thinking built it. And every person in the organization is operating from that same unspoken belief that getting by is the standard. Here's one for you to write down. You're not building a team. You are collecting warm bodies. So here's 2 fixes for you. If that feels like you right now, and you want to move out of that situation, I'm going to keep these simple because simple is what you need right now. Before your next hire, write 1 paragraph, not a job description, 1 paragraph, describing who the ideal person for that role actually is. Not what they do, who they are. What do they believe? How do they show up under pressure? What's non-negotiable for them to fit into what you're building right now? That paragraph is your hiring standard. Just start right there. That's number 1. Number 2, if you're in this quadrant, define 1 core value today. Not 5, 1. The thing you will not compromise or regardless of the pressure. Maybe it's integrity, maybe it's urgency, maybe it's that accountability, like ownership. My apologies, I got thrown off there. I got a phone call coming through my ears. Whatever it is, write it down, basically, right? So we're talking about the second thing. Write it down, tell your team, and start making decisions through that lens. 1 conviction consistently applied becomes the seed of the real culture. Everything else grows from it. We're looking for progress. Progress is greater than achievement in this situation. We're looking to help you create some movement. That's for that. Now, qualified champions, this is the top right quadrant. And then here we are, right? This is the goal state. And if you're here, I want to acknowledge what it took to get here, because this isn't where most people operate. You hire to a defined standard, not just skills. You're looking for values alignment and behavioral patterns. Your culture is intentional. You can articulate what it is, and maybe more importantly, what it isn't. This is where I usually tell people, when you're hiring, when we figure out the skills, we know what they can do for the business. A big part of this conversation should also be, what can the business do for this person to grow? And you've got that figured out, or you're at least something you're doing, right? You have hard conversations rather quickly. You don't let underperformance fester for 6 months, hoping it'll get self-corrected. You recruit consistently, not just when someone quits and leaves you scrambling. By the way, if you're the business owner that is recruiting when someone quits only, you're going to end up having to go find people who are looking for jobs, meaning the unemployed. And I'm not saying that the unemployed are bad people to be hiring from, but the best candidates typically are happy where they are. They're just looking for a move up or a move into the direction that they want to go, not just financially, by the way. The team around you is going to reflect your standard because you actually have one, right? So cultural gravity is not going to stop pulling on you guys either, even here. And here's how it gets you specifically. Complacency after a season of strong performance, right? Tony Robbins likes to say, when things go well, we tend to party, and when things don't go well, we tend to ponder, right? Things are going well, you get complacent. You stop auditing the standard because everything just seems fine, right? Over loyalty to your original team members who were great when the business was smaller, but haven't grown at the same rate the business has. And scaling too fast without deliberately transferring the culture, it's another one. You're going to be bringing in new people at a pace that dilutes what you built before they've had a chance to absorb it. So what keeps champions here is treating culture as a living system. It's a full-blown ecosystem is what you're looking to create. Not a one-time decision, not a plaque on the wall, a dynamic, evolving commitment that gets revisited regularly. That's what we're really looking for. They know the business reflects the leader. So they keep doing their own internal work, and they release people with dignity and without guilt when it's time. Because they understand that holding on too long hurts everyone. They don't manage culture, they model it. So 2 things champions do that other patterns don't typically. First, they define unacceptable as clearly as they define excellent. Most leaders spend all their time describing what great performance looks like. Champions also draw a hard line at what won't be tolerated. And everyone on the team knows exactly where that line is, because ambiguity is where cultural gravity breeds. So clarity starves it. I want to write that one down. The second thing they do that you want to make sure you're doing in all the other ones, and you want to maintain if you're in this quadrant, they run stay interviews. Not just exit interviews after someone quits, right? I remember I helped a RE/MAX office grow their into multiple locations. And so I started going around to all this RE/MAX, the real estate company, right? Went around to all the managers at 5 locations, and I would ask them consistently, tell me why the agents that are here, why are they here? And I'll tell you why anyone else would want to be a part of it. And many times they couldn't answer that question. So they did, and they in fact grew. These people will sit down with their best people regularly and ask, what would make you leave? What would make you stay forever? That data is gold. It shapes the culture in real time based on what your top performers actually need, not what you assume they need. So here's the thread that connects all 4 of those patterns. Every single one of those, every single one of them has a team problem that isn't actually a team problem. It's a standard problem. And every standard problem, without exception, traces back to one place. That's the leadership. The business is going to reflect the leader, always. So businesses don't compete. Leaders of those businesses are competing. Always. Not sometimes, not usually, always. Your team's behavior is a mirror of what you've been willing to tolerate. Mm. And if this is starting to feel a little bit heavy, there's a reason I have an elephant as our logo, because we talk about the elephant in the room. Your culture is the byproduct of every decision you made and every decision you avoided making over the last year. Cultural gravity didn't build your team, but it absolutely influenced the standard you hired to and the behaviors you let slide. So before you look at your team and start making a list of what's wrong with them, I'm gonna want you to ask yourself 4 questions. Did I define the standard clearly? Did I hire to that standard? Did I hold it consistently? And did I model it myself? Because if the answer to any of those is no, I'd be willing to bet for most of you, it's probably more than one, you don't have a team problem, you have a mirror problem. And the mirror is showing you exactly the standard you've been living by. Your team isn't the problem. Your standard is. And your standard came from you. So which pattern did you recognize yourself in today? Because whichever one it was, that pattern is running your excellence arena right now. And until you address it at the pattern level, every new hire, every cultural initiative you have, every retention strategy is just rearranging furniture in a house that needs a new foundation. The tactics matter, but the pattern has to go first. Here's what I want you to do. Go to the unshakablesecrets.com, just unshakablesecrets.com. And unshake does have an E in there. As a matter of fact, I'll just put the link in the description. Take the free Defiant assessment. It takes about 3 to 5 minutes, and it'll show you exactly which pattern is running you. Not just for this particular arena of excellence, but across all 5 arenas of your business. Because the pattern doesn't just show up in your team. It shows up everywhere. Link is in the description. I'm going to put that in there for you. Next week, we're moving on to the exposure arena. That's sales and marketing. So we touched on this back a couple of episodes. I want to say 2 episodes maybe, which would be 106. But now we're getting deeper with the same pattern lens we just did today, okay? If you've got questions about your sales and your marketing, your pipeline or your prospecting, your closing, any of it, drop them in the comments below or over in the Unshakable Business Leader group on Facebook. Get them in before Wednesday, and I'm going to share them. Actually, if you can do it by Sunday, the week before, I can get it taken care of on the live call when we do it on Wednesday, okay? I'm Spencer Combs, the Defiant Coach. Stay defiant, and I'll see you on the next one next Wednesday.